Good evening, everybody. My name is Wyatt Shields. I want to welcome everybody to this town hall meeting on the City Hall project. I would observe right at the outset that everybody in the audience are among the greatest experts already on our City Hall project. Let me ask if Mayor Tarter would like to make any remarks. This is taped, and we will run this on a loop, and it'll be on the city's webpage so people can download this presentation, and I think that's a key audience for us with tonight's presentation.
Thank you very much. I'd like to welcome you all here. I'm delighted to be with you this evening. We've got some of our colleagues from City Council I thought I'd introduce. Vice Mayor Mary Beth Conley, Letty Hardy, Phil Duncan. Got some folks from the Planning Commission as well, Letty Hockenberry, Melissa Teets, and of course Gary Laporta as well. So welcome to you all, and thank you for coming out. This is a big project, and it's an important project for the city. We've got a lot of capital needs right now, and so I think it's important for us to contemplate all the different things we're going to undertake or we're considering undertaking. And so I think this is a really important discussion we're going to have tonight, and I know it's of great importance, certainly the people who work here, to the courts, and a lot of other reasons here in the city. So I know a lot of hard work has gone into getting us where we are today. So looking forward to hearing from you all, what you all think about it, and thank you to staff for all the good work you've done.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, with that, we'll kick off with the presentation this evening. What we're going to do is do an update on where we've been and where we are in the next key steps so that everybody is aware of where we are in the process. And then Todd Ray from Studio 27 is going to get an update on the schematic design process and where we are in that. We have a new video that FCC TV just finished this afternoon. So we're going to play that so you all can see it, and then that's also going to be available on the website. And then as you all came in or as you leave, we have the boards out there that we had at Fall Festival during our pop-up, and there's some Post-its out there. So if there's some things you heard or questions or thoughts you have, feel free to put some comments up there, as well as we'll end with some time for you all to have questions and answer period as well. So with that, let me just put up there on the screen, and I'll call your attention to the one to my left. That's the only projector working well this evening. Actually, Wyatt, could you dim the lights a little bit for me? That might help. So we have up here on the screen the project goals and benefits, because we always want to remind ourselves where we are and why we're doing this project in terms of safety for the courts, for the police, a good central entry point for wayfinding, and of course secure after access hours. And additionally, in doing this project, we're going to achieve some pretty important code compliance issues and life safety issues. And so that's always very important to keep in mind as we go through this project. We have a long history of working on this project, from the first feasibility study in 2008 to the last one done by Dewberry in October 2015. And that, along with the funding approved by City Council from FY12 to FY14, brought us to a point where we had a feasible project that had been right-sized. We have done a lot of different variations and options during this process, from tear down, rebuild, triple the size of City Hall, and back down to what is a reasonable civic center for the city that meets our needs and is within a financially constrained and feasible situation, because as we all know, we have a lot of capital needs in the city. We have completed about $1 million of the critical renovations that could not wait in this building, and those were some things like the chimneys, because the bricks were falling off and literally hitting people, snow rails because we were getting large icicles, sprinkler system, and police evidence. So some really critical things have already had some investment in City Hall. We then went into a procurement process to bring an architect on to work on the schematic design, which is what we're reporting on this evening. And after an extensive procurement process where we got a lot of great responses, we brought on 2 architectural firms that are doing our large projects for the city. And then after they were under contract and approved by City Council, we then asked them specifically to propose, well, how would you address and approach the City Hall Public Space and Safety Improvements Project. Through that process, then council awarded to Studio 27, and that was with the full consensus of the City Hall Task Force. Most of you have heard this presentation before or have had interaction with Studio 27, but I'll just note for you all, they have done business in the city before as they did the design for the Easter Seals building just off of Hillwood. We have decided that the construction methodology for this project will be called CMAR, which is a construction manager at risk process, and it's a way to mitigate the risk for the city and control costs. And what it allows us to do is, per state code, bring on the contractor during the next design stage, and then they would be with us all the way through design to construction, teaming with the architect, so we're all clearly on the same page as we move forward to design and construction. The 5 firms have been shortlisted, and the RFP to those 5 firms to really say how would you address City Hall has just been released. That'll close in the end of October. Then we'll interview those and make a recommendation to council in December for who should be the contractor for the project. We have been spending a lot of time making sure that we've done good community outreach and seek stakeholder input. And this is a summary of some of the efforts that we have been undertaking. Studio 27 did a lot of confirmation of the program, which means what are the functions in City Hall, what are the space, what are the storages, who needs to be adjacent to who, what's the best wayfinding flow, and how to address court security, for example. User input is all the people using this building. That has been a lot, obviously, the staff that work here, but we've gone out to a lot of the boards and commissions who have regular meetings in this building. Task Force has continued to meet. We've been at Fall Festival. We're doing tonight's town hall, and we've done a lot of social media website, the video that I mentioned, and so far News Press has done 2 articles, and since the editor's in the room, maybe we'll get another update to make sure that the community is fully aware of this project. We will be updating the task force in November, which will include reporting out to them all the input and comments we've received, and we're in the process of summarizing them. Tonight will be the last formal community outreach meeting, and there's a couple boards and commissions that have asked me to come to them in early November. So we'll roll all that information in there. You can see some of the boards and commissions that we have spoken to. We're scheduled to go to council on November 21st with an update and a request to proceed past schematic design to full design and engineering. When council approved the Studio 27 contract, the full contract was awarded with authorization to do phase 1, which was the schematic design, so that we could have community engagement with that process. Once we move into the next design stage, that actually kicks off another round of community engagement, because then we'll have a lot more granular on the look and feel of the architecture, and we'll get more comments in on that. We've been talking to the mayor about doing an earlier briefing, maybe at the end of October, to give full council a formal update with the comments, and then do the November meeting, and then in December, the construction contract would be before council. And so with those processes coming together, then in early 2017, we would be doing the design development with the CMAR on. We'd be preparing the site plan and going through the planning commission process with the formal boards and commission referrals. So far, everything's been an informal advisory, soliciting input kind of process. Construction starting in late 2017. We're currently estimating a 24-month process. So then by the end of 2019, or Happy New Year's in 2020, we hope to be done. And once again, those are the project goals. And with that, I am going to switch slides and turn it over to Studio 27 so you can really see the important stuff, the meat of the project.
Well, thanks everyone here tonight. From Studio 27, I'm Todd Ray, and with me here tonight is actually Jason Shee, and Jason's project architect on the project. So as we're moving forward, just wanted to thank Cindy and also the mayor and everyone else who's spoken this evening. It's really a privilege for the studio to be working on this project. We're very excited about it. We put a lot of energy toward it, and so any comments you have are also welcome. When we began working on this project, we actually began studying, is one of the first things. We wanted to try to figure out, and we posed 4 questions to ourselves, and I was just going to read them really quickly, because we were concentrating on things very specifically. And the first was, what is the landscape and the urban context in which the City Hall sits? We know with the little city here and the way that this rests on the hillside, this is a major implication, particularly with the park next door and then how green the space is now. And then we also wanted to know, hello, hey, we're here, how this building is a civic structure and how it engenders and sort of represents the essence of the city of Falls Church as you move forward into time. Because now it becomes a symbolic, as it extends its symbolic center, the new building has to also engender that. The third thing is, as it is the seat of the democracy for this city, what does that exude? How do you begin to represent that in an architectural way? And then the final one is how this building in its new form will symbolize fairness, balance, openness, understanding, connection, and equitability for all. Because so much of what we're doing here is about creating a new, fully accessible building that is going to be welcoming to the overall community and also very much a public building. And so we want to make sure that we're capturing these elements. So what I'm going to show here, a couple of slides now. And the way that we began to study the building. This first slide is drawing the city and then also drawing the building and see what their relationships are and how it exists right in the center of the town and how meaningful that is to make center. And then we started zooming in a little bit more, and these are 2 diagrams that illustrate how the City Hall is really a building in the park. And so you can see Cherry Hill Park off to the left, and then how, if you understand these topo lines, basically how the ridge rises up, City Hall sits there, and then rests gently against the park. When we first got involved was about right here. These are some diagrams that we created, but we were really analyzing exactly where things are. And the one on the left-hand side is, you can see City Hall in the very front. Not sure if this red light is working, it's not. City Hall is in the front, and then off to the right is the community center. And there's an axis that actually begins to be formed between the intersection at the library and the rec center. And it's actually interesting the way that it begins to cross the landscape and begin to connect the whole urban campus, this municipal campus that's formed. And so then we look to the one on the right, and that's the concept that we actually received with Report 4. Report 4 was done by Dewberry, and they had, as Cindy was explaining, gone through so many gyrations of what this building could be. And then ultimately this was imagined to be the right sizing of the building. And that encompassed an addition at the front, we call the north building, or the south addition. We have the north addition at the rear, and then there was a parking garage. And then, so those 3 elements become these 3 primary elements that begin to be connected to the City Hall. And then the next thing that we did was start drawing, as architects do. We actually found that there were no drawings of note that captured all of City Hall. And then so what we did was we collected from a whole range of different sets of drawings and accesses of documents that we could find. And then you go through this process of drawing. And that method actually begins to ingrain what this building is like and what it is and what it was and what the original architects were thinking when they drew it. And so that process is very meditative, but it's also educational. And then so as Jason was drawing through these and I was drawing through these, we were learning, what is the rhythm of the building? What is the scale of the building? And how does that begin to, be reflected in what was realized? And then here you can see sort of this Neo-Georgian, basically colonial revival building that we have today. This is an older photograph. You can see the trees are a lot less mature because you don't quite get this view now, but this view is really remarkable. And so we want to try to recapture that as we move forward. But you can see how with the original building, the 1956, and then ultimately the 1980s addition, it was placed on the hillside very, very much with intention. It's also simple and balanced, humble in a lot of ways. And you look at the precedents for this structure and sort of the balance of this Georgian-style building from the 1700s, basically Robert E. Lee's home, Stratford Hall. And you can see how dominant is it on the landscape. But then if you begin to break down the scale of this, you can see how City Hall was ultimately imagined. So we kind of joke about this. It's a studio because I'm educated at UVA. And it's like, when you start going and looking at a building, okay, well, you got to draw a circle on it, like the rotunda, you know. But really, this is a way that we began to understand the vocabulary of the building, the rhythm, the repetition that you find, the scales, all of this meaningful geometry that's embedded into a building. And in a way, you're also going back and sort of reflecting through what the original architect thought about. And so this is our next sort of way of imagining how this building was imagined and conceived. In our second task, we began to see, what are the spatial relationships of the building? These are two building sections. And what we were trying to figure out is that now we had our program that we needed to fit into the building. What was the relationship of the program to the internal movement one to the other? And so that's what this section begins to see, is that, if we began to put, X program on this part of the floor, what do we put on the next portion of the floor? And then we realized that there were a lot of common adjacencies, and if we began to interweave those together, the spaces open up and really have a very obvious relationship to one another. A key component that we have in the building is wayfinding. Currently when you come in, I would dare, if you came in there, if you could guide someone to the bathroom on the first floor on the east wing, it's not going to happen. And then so one of the critical things that we were trying to figure out is what's going to lead most elegantly to a system of wayfinding in the building. And so what we did was we started designing the building from the inside out. So the top image is an interior perspective of what the lobby could be. And that's if we were imagining, okay, you walk in the front door and we have to get you to the courts. The top left, you see somebody's feet. That's the entrance level to the courts. It's like, how odd, how obscure. It's not really, an easy way to begin to navigate. So then we said, well, let's open up the floor just slightly so that we can make a visual connection from when you walk in the front door, off to the right here, to where the courts would be. And so you can see the windows of the existing courtrooms now sort of appearing if we cut away the floor. We said, well, let's take that a little bit further. Let's take it one more notch and say, let's take out the next level of the floor, the one going down. And so now what you see is you see the main entrance on the right-hand side, and then you see that we could just add the small stairway here, and then on the left-hand side, this is where the dogwood room is. Above that is the chambers where we sit now, and then off to the end begin to be the public exchange counters between the different program elements that we have in City Hall. So we're basically going to reconfigure the wings, I'll show you a plan in a moment, so that then they would be, the public functions would be immediately off of this new public entryway. So now we've done this inside out, we're going to go way out. So this is our site plan. So one of the biggest keys to this site plan is that one of the critical issues in the design is the security. And right now, I think there are 14 entrances in and out of the building. All of those have to be monitored and secure. You can imagine that that's a headache. What we've done is we've actually captured all of those entrances now, reconfigured the building in such a way that we have one entrance right at the front, so that we can maintain the security at one point of entry, and we can lock off all others, or close them off so that they're not even part of the circulation any longer, which is one of the primary elements that we've done. And then so what we've done is right in the front, again, it's not going to work, where the one is our new main entrance. And then beside our new main entrance is all of our handicap parking, because now we only have one entrance. This is where we would put all of our handicap parking, because that's where our elevator is going to be, and it organizes everything around a new public plaza. And so then we would move into the building, and then if you move all the way to the inside of the building, you will see up at the top this triangular element. That's our new parking garage. And if somebody would have once told me that I would do a triangular parking garage, I would have been surprised because I didn't think it would be as efficient as this one has become. And I would not have imagined that you would have done one to begin with. What we have is a unique relationship with our park, and we have a property boundary line that we really need to respect. And then so what we started doing is saying, okay, well, the parking garage can come this distance from an existing building. Off to the right, we maintain some traffic alignments. And then off to the left, we maintain and respect our property line with the park. It made this parking area, and indeed it fits the exact 44 parking spaces that we need up and down. The lower level of this is primarily for secure parking, for the police department's cars and also judges. And then it houses a whole range of other supportive program down there, which is related to public safety. So, and then what you find is that once you put the parking garage there, we've created an internal courtyard between our existing building, our new north addition, and then where the parking garage is. And so in lieu of that being sort of this drab space, we've actually engaged that and begun to give it a public function. And so now it's an area that's a courtyard immediately off of the major public rooms, which are at the lower level where the dogwood room is currently. So this is a little bit larger plan, and the reason we show this is so we can show the handicap parking, which is on the left-hand side, which is number 12. One is our main entrance, and you can see that we've got some traffic calming measures with textures and paving. And then also then we have a small public terrace with a raised planter bed. And then you can see on either side we begin to have a little bit of reconfigured parking spaces to get a little bit more parking on site, which we need because of displacement, particularly when we're adding a little bit of public terrace at the front. And then you can see in the back we're beginning to develop the courtyard, and we can talk about that in a little bit, but basically we're using that also for some stormwater treatment. I'm going to go through these very quickly. These are the floor plans. North is up. South is down. Obviously that makes east and west to the right and left. And then what we have is large blocks of color. It's a little bit hard to read. Green, we have a legend here on the right-hand side, bottom. The public is in green. Staff space is in sort of an orangish red. And then secure is purple. And then we have shared space, which is striped. And then so we can see that in a moment. But you'll see this is the basement level floor. I should probably also bring up, we have renamed all of the floors in the building, so they don't coincide with what you experience today. And then so we'll be using a different coding system here. This is the basement floor, this is the police area. And then the next level up, this is the ground floor. So it's basically basement level on the west wing side. So what we have is we have IT located in that area, and then we're building a new level along the pedestrian area in front of the building. And that's going to be a primary corridor for mail deliveries, but also primarily storage. And then it also makes a nice entrance. The green portion here is the elevator coming down, and then you see the striped. That's the new public entrance for the police department. So we're going to be moving it from the east wing around to inside of the building on the front. And then on the left-hand side, the large rectangle on the left in purple is our sally port. So that ties into the lowest level of the parking garage, and that's for all of our prisoner exchange from the parking area, from the exterior into the sally port, and from that point, secure passage all the way up to the courtrooms and holding cells. So on this floor, you can see we have a lot more orange and a lot more green. And then so on the left-hand side, we have human services. We also have court services, primarily their clerk of the courts, and also housing and human services. And then on the right-hand side, that's all primarily the development administration suites. And then on the center, we have voter registration. So those are the primary program elements in the orange. And then what you will see is right in the front here is our main entrance. I'm going to come over here and start pointing because I think I can do a little bit better job. So right here is our main entrance, and what we have is a way in which you can go through the metal detector machine on court days, and then other days you would bypass those. And then you would come in, and it's a grand lobby, the perspective that we saw earlier, stairs that take you down immediately to public areas, and then also the main public bathrooms. If we go off to the right, these are new stairs and the new public elevator, and those will serve all floors, including the half floors that we experience with the court, this court level, and then also the lower chamber level. Going up to the next floor, again, we have a whole city administration on the right-hand side, and then on the left-hand side, we have sort of finance, treasury. But the big key is right in the center. This is our loft sort of bridge space, and then that's at the same level as the chamber space, which is here. At the top, you'll see the sort of striated area, sort of the orange and the purple. That's staff of courts and sheriff's department, and that's our secure access to getting into multiple levels of this room. You can see that we have 3 different levels to this room. So we've got an entire addition on the back-end side that begins to work at different elevations relative to ramps and stairways that will allow us to have a wheelchair access any of these levels without the lift in this room. So now we start, what does it begin to look like? Well, we'll go back to my trusty UVA drawing and start looking at proportions and rhythms and repetitions and trying to be very respectful of the original building. And then so what we have is we've created a glass box which is transparent so that one can appreciate the original structure. In that glass box, it's also framed and very delicately touches the original building. So what we're trying to do is create a building that is transparent and then has a very delicate relationship to the existing structure. And then so this is a detailed study that we've begun, got a lot more development to do on it, but basically how the original structure, which is the red brick that you see on the right-hand side, and how its rhythm of windows and drip course and eave line are all translated into the framed and subtle divisions of all of the glass of the new structure. And then the lower portion of it is to be, we have this young lady sitting here studying, is to be a continuous bench along the front of the courtrooms, or along the public plaza. So these are a couple of elevations. They're a little bit difficult to read, so I'm going to move through them. This is a rendering that we've been working on to try to begin to study what it's going to look like. And I will say that since the time of this rendering, we have now taken off this upper level floor at one time, which was a courtroom, and we'll see that in the video that we see in a few moments. And then so what you see on the left-hand side, obviously we have the flags, and then the public crosswalk there. High textured crosswalk, so that when you drive over, you're very conscious of it. You go into the main entrance, and the entrance you can, on the left-hand side, obviously bypass, and then that goes straight down the stairs and can then go all the way through to the courtyard, through the lower level of the chambers. And then to the right-hand side, we have this large atrium area with a new elevator, the new stairs that then go up for each floor, and then we have the public counters, which are basically occurring at the end of each of these corridors. This is another view that we were looking into, different kinds of materials. And so we're going to continue these material studies through the design development phase. This is schematic, and so we're really just thinking about conceptually what should the building be like, how should it relate to the original structure. And so this was looking at a Corten steel or a a wood-skinned building. I should note that the building will be silver LEED certified, and so it will have a high sustainability component relative to the whole range, site sustainability, water, energy and environment. And so this building will save you guys a lot of electrical cost and a lot of utility cost, especially when we've done the analysis of the existing structure. And then looking at the parking garage, I wanted to talk about that for just one brief moment. These are 4 various images we call precedent images. What you'll see in these images is basically a metal scrim, and then a whole series of plantings, and then a concrete backdrop. And that's kind of what we were working with for the exterior surface materials for the parking garage that we're currently thinking about, is that we really want the parking garage to feel as though it's a piece of the landscape and it's actually evolving out of the park versus an addition to the building. So each time we refer to it, we try to say that the garage is actually an extension of the park. And that's proved to be so in many different ways. So one thing we were able to determine is that if you study the site topography, or all the shape of the land of the site, the high point is at about 12 to 13 feet above the low point of where we're going to be putting the parking garage. So what does that do? That allows us to separate any internal circulation of the parking garage. We don't need it. We can actually go drive into one section of the parking lot, and then at the lower end, we can drive into the other section of the parking lot, and neither of those two need to meet. That's actually excellent because it separates all of our public traffic from our security traffic. And then we started drawing these perspectives to try to study a little bit. And a big component is that we wanted to try to reduce the scale of the parking garage, make it feel like it was part of the land versus making a large structure in the landscape. And so this is a view basically from, we're proposing this path to connect the parking to the library. And so this is a path view, and you can begin to see on the right-hand side is City Hall, and then on the left-hand side is where the parking lot is, or the parking structure is. Way beyond that red line, that's actually the community center. You can see the community center will be taller than the parking garage. And then this is a view from the far east corner. Over here, City Hall, left-hand side. And then you can see how the parking garage would just sort of flow out of that as the land begins to fall away. And then on the far right, you see the police cruiser that we have in the rendering. That's the entrance for the secure portions of the parking garage. And then on the right-hand side, you'll see that that's the community center. When we just show you the rendering in a few moments, you'll actually begin to experience this a little bit because it's a fly-through. You can begin to understand how it actually looks from different perspectives. And so just to give you a sense of how low-lying this is an elevation drawing. Left-hand side, again, is City Hall, and you can see that we're only halfway up or 3/4 of the way up the first level of City Hall. So we're keeping it very low profile. And we'll just close with this. This is the internal court between the courthouse. The north addition is above us. And then we'll open right out into the courtyard. And then so the garage is actually the far distant right. And so this will be a public amenity that comes off of, so behind these gentlemen and lady here on the left, we'll have entrance doors that just open off of what is now the Dogwood Room. Overhead view, quick landscape view. Okay.
Okay. Okay, so what we're going to show now is the video that was just produced by FCC TV using a lot of the slides that you saw and what Jason was able to put together, creating a fly-through. And so you'll get, as Todd mentioned, get the sense to feel how you work around City Hall. And hopefully this is all going to work because I didn't get to do a dry run because we just got it.
City Hall, located in the heart of the little city of Falls Church at 300 Park Avenue, serves a number of functions for the community. In addition to administrative offices for the city government, it also holds council chambers, the combined district court, the police department, the sheriff's office, and more. In this analysis, the architects demonstrate how campus functions could connect for improved pedestrian accessibility and highlight City Hall. City Hall, pictured above, was built in 1957 and last renovated in 1986. The lower photo of Stratford Hall shows the architectural style after which City Hall was modeled, a tradition the architects wish to preserve while ensuring a functional building for the future. This video highlights the plans from the City Hall public space and safety improvements for the City Hall campus. These renovations will improve security and make it easier for the public to navigate the building. This view shows City Hall in context to the surrounding buildings and park. The red tags identify key buildings on the City Hall campus. You have arrived from the intersection of Park Avenue and Little Falls Street at the planned central front entrance of the Harry E. Wells Municipal Building. The red tags identify the central front entrance, public elevator, and the courtroom chambers entrance. You are now moving around the exterior of the east wing with a view of the two-level parking garage, which follows the ground elevation to keep a low profile and blend into the park. A living wall that changes colors through the seasons is planned. This perspective is from the inside of the community center, looking toward the planned parking garage and City Hall expansion. This is a 2-level parking garage in the rear of City Hall. The lower level will be for police, sheriffs, and courts. It will be completely enclosed and secured. The top level will have approximately 44 spaces, which will provide additional parking to the City Hall campus and reduce demands on surrounding parking areas. There will be an enclosed sally port and an addition to the rear of City Hall, which will include a new security access elevator and security corridor for court. This design will connect the east and west wings and add office space for city staff. City services can then become available to a greater number of city residents. The final component of the project will be modifications to the existing building, including a complete renovation of the aging HVAC system, as well as interior renovations to maximize existing spaces and improve connections to the new building additions. We are now traveling beside the west wing, back to the front of the building. Moving into the main entrance, a centralized elevator allows for easy and convenient access for people of all ages and abilities. Visitors to the building will easily find the public meeting rooms down a half level upon entering. Looking left and right, they will find department services such as the permits counter, parking ticket payment, voter registration, and employment information. The new central entrance to City Hall is an important component of the renovations. The city's most used services will be brought to the front, and public meeting spaces will be conveniently accessible. The building will also be more secure, allowing for only one visitor entry point. The corridor connecting the east and west wings can be reached by stairs or elevator. You are now traveling to the lower G level and the meeting rooms. The G level will contain 2 meeting rooms and public restrooms in the front part of the building, and it will be near secured areas of police dispatch for after-hour reporting. Moving past the public meeting rooms, you will arrive at the outdoor courtyard. That completes the video tour of the planned City Hall public space and safety improvements on the City Hall campus. Staff will continue to finalize floor plan and elevation concepts and other details. Public input will be solicited as the exterior architecture and designs are refined. Pending council concurrence in November, we anticipate construction to begin late 2017 and be completed by late 2019. For the latest updates on this project, please visit the city's website, www.fallschurchva.gov/City Hall renovations.
Okay, well, with that, that's the formal presentation that we wanted to do this evening to give everybody the same foundation of knowledge of where we are in the schematic designs. And what we'd like to do now is open it up to you all for comments and questions. And since we're recording, I am going to ask that you use the microphone, and then we'll use this one to respond. So anybody have comments or questions that you'd like to share with us? Right.
How many elevators are in the building? You have one new public elevator. Are we keeping the 2 older elevators?
One elevator. So we have
Elevator for the whole building?
one elevator for the whole building. And then we have the secure elevator that's in the rear. So we have 2 formal elevators. One's primarily public and the other one's primarily for secure. We were also, as part of this, doing an elevator study. So we'll be finalizing that. There was one elevator study completed under Dewberry, and it was determined to use one elevator.
Yeah, so it would be one would be central front, and then we'd have a secure one back here as the current design.
Is that a single shaft or 2 shaft elevator?
It's a single shaft elevator.
But when the elevator goes down, we use the stairs.
Yes, sir. It's also sustainability.
Did we pick up any more meeting space other than Dogwood?
Yes, actually Dogwood is almost doubled in size, and it's also a room that's divisible so that you have 2 different rooms. And then there are, I think, 2 other meeting rooms that we have that are public use.
And there's very little direct access parking out front other than the handicap?
The whole row that's along the park side
Okay.
is, remains.
And that should probably be kept for visitors then.
I would imagine, yeah, that would work well.
Yeah. I really like how the parking garage blends into stuff, though. That's really
Oh, excellent.
very, very neat.
Thank you. What's the route from the upper garage parking deck into the building? So if I pull in, park, and come to see somebody in the building, is that through the courtyard and then into the lobby space? Is that?
That's correct. Yeah. So we have one route that comes directly off the parking garage, and then it goes down to the courtyard level. We also have a ramp that comes around that level, and then you can come in two of the back doors. The issue that we're currently working on is how those are to be secured and how they're going to be operating for public.
So one thing I really like about the project is the way that you've pulled all of these entrances in all these different ways to sort of sneak into the building through either the east or the west and pull it all to the front and made one much more ceremonial big space that you then mix from that space to all of the different offices. And it appears to shorten the distances. So when you enter on the west and do business and then need to go to the east to do business, everything's a trek. But by entering in the center, it seems to shorten all those circulations and just make it more friendly, make it so that you can actually enter City Hall and see people who aren't sort of hiding out at different ends of the building. So I think that's neat.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm particularly fond of the sign that's right out front of the door here that said this is not a public entrance.
If I could just add sort of an additional point of what we're thinking about so you all can be thinking about for feedback. On that upper level of parking, one of our thoughts is that's where we could put all the city vehicles, and then all the surface parking becomes available for visitors, either going to the community center, the farmhouse, or to City Hall, but all the visitor parking up front would not be staff anymore because you want people coming in the central front entrance. If we did that, the doors into the rear of City Hall could just sort of be the staff functioning ones and have security, and then making parking available for the public in the logical places versus up on the garage that then you'd have to come down and come back around. So those are in the design development stage. We'll work through those details, but those are the type of things we're weighing the pros and cons on.
I have another question. How does the front work in the future with the farmer's market and sort of the hill out front? I like the photo that you had, the old photo of the front. I forgot that you could actually see the building.
Yeah, that's a remarkable thing.
A lot of land out front, a lot of park, and maybe not so used between the parking lot where the farmer's market is and the street. Seems like maybe there's another opportunity out there.
We want the farmer's market to take over. We love the farmer's market, and it just works so well. And then so what we're trying to do is make that public plaza, and we'd like to be able to modify the landscape ever so slightly so that we could extend the farmer's market down into that green a little bit. And then we'd love to also see the farmer's market come take over the upper level of the parking area so that it actually wraps all of City Hall during that. And then so we do have a stair connector that connects the upper level of the garage down to the level of the community center. So that could be a good access so that you would have a 360 circulation around. So I think the farmer's market could really engage the entire site.
Anybody else?
I guess the commissioner's office and the treasurer's office are due to go to the second floor.
Yes, left-hand side, there. So the Commissioner of Revenue in the bottom left, and then Treasurer is the middle to the right on that wing.
So we have a lot of foot traffic and a lot of elderly foot traffic. I'm not so sure us going to the second floor is a good idea. If you've seen my waist, it's probably a good idea that I use more stairs, but I'm not sure about the rest of the people. But just a thought. It is hard to juggle who's on what floor, but I think if public safety is the first goal, and the second goal should be benefiting the public,
Yes.
and then that should make the building most efficient for them. And then employing a certain department wishes kind of come further down the line, if you ask me.
It's a very good point.
Have you more or less eliminated that pop-up to the right of the top of the roof?
Up the top, yes.
Yeah,
Yes,
I don't
that's
like
gone.
that. It sets the whole building askew.
Yes.
Your circles won't go around it.
No, it won't.
No.
They just couldn't, no matter how large we drew those circles, they didn't work.
Totally off-center.
But that's the value of public input, because we showed the different renditions and got a lot of feedback. Let me add to Ms. Hockenberry's question before about meeting space. In addition to the public meeting spaces that Todd was mentioning, in each of the office floor suites, we have conference rooms so that we have staff meetings or developer meetings or contractor meetings. So there's additional spaces for that function, but a good amount of public space in a nice central, safe, secure area for the more public meetings of boards and commissions.
I'm wondering if, how much of what, like where we're sitting right now, and how much of the rest of the building will still be here? I mean, is this a renovation or a tear down and rebuild?
It is a major renovation. All the exterior walls are basically remaining. And then so we'll have all of the exterior walls. This space is, we'll say, virtually untouched. We're adding new mechanical systems and new sprinkler systems into here, but the balance of it will remain the same. The windows, we may or may not replace, but these are going to now be looking out into public ways versus outside. And then so basically the additions that we're doing are really kind of small. We're infilling the entry court onto the right, and we're infilling between the wings on the left. And then so the balance of the building will remain. And then we're gutting both wings relative to systems, our mechanical system, which is so old, the electrical system, which needs updating, and redoing those. The floors remain consistent, and then we're modifying the layouts of the interior walls.
Last night, we were having a meeting also about the library renovation, which will be perhaps going on at the same time. Is there any thought of a centralized geothermal for the two buildings?
This is the first time that question has come up.
Thank you.
And I will say that we will look at that.
Because we're going to be working on both buildings on either side of Park Avenue.
Right.
And if we're going to really go into the future and be what we want to be, because I think we need to look at that also when we go up to the Upper West Campus,
Yes.
to have that electrical supply, or the whole supply, not electrical, but the whole heating and cooling concentration up there. But it could be a possibility here. You can't retrofit the community center, of course, but
Right.
it would be really a feather.
No, we should look at we'll look at the premium in the overall budget of going geothermal, because of all the things that one can do for sustainability, I am wholeheartedly sold on geothermal. Because so much of sustainability is about reduction. You know, it's reduction of energy use, even more so than, you know, generating new power. And so if you never have to generate it, then so much the better. So it's all about reduction. And with geothermal, the way that the systems operate, you have so much reduction that's built in, and you're using so much of the core.
Right, and that would have to be a sell in case, you know, it would take more upfront money, but
Yeah.
it would be paid off in a certain number of years. But it would be really exciting for the city, since we, you know, and you did such a great job over at the Child Development Center and everything. I think we need to get out there and get going and be on front of things for a change.
Okay. Thank you.
Hi, I have one comment and one question. In thinking about geothermal, one of the ways that it's made feasible financially these days is through the large tax credits that are available, particularly from the federal government. Obviously, the city doesn't get a tax credit, but I know there are ways that have been set up so that you set up a private company, they get the tax credit, and basically the city gets at least a large part of that money back. So something to look into from a financial point of view.
That's good advice.
My question has to do with, we're doing a total gut, which I think is absolutely warranted. It's sad to see our city employees working very hard in former closets and hallways and things like that. It's pretty bad. What do we do with everyone when we're doing a total gut? Where are they going to work?
You want me to talk about that? Yeah. So what we've come up with a strategy of phasing, which we actually think it's pretty good. So we're hoping it's going to work well. It's basically a two-phase, with the second phase having two parts. The first phase is that we're going to move, is it DPW, right? Out to the
Property yard?
property yard. Thank you. I couldn't remember what property yard was. Moving those out to property yard. That frees up a lot of space. And then we're going to take a small portion and we're going to move them into movable trailer out in front of Gage House. And then we'll renovate the west wing. When we renovate the west wing, then we can take a good portion of the population that's in the east wing. They're actually swinging into the west wing because that's going to be their final location anyway. And then so they'll have newly renovated space. And then we have a two-phased approach relative to building the front addition, renovating sort of the upgrades that we need to do here and below, and then the addition in the back, and then the renovation to the east wing. And then so we call this 2A for the center portion, and we call that 2B for the east wing. And our big time component here is that we can relocate the courts, but we can only do so for about 4 months. And then so we have to have an accelerated construction schedule to deal with the first portion of the second phase. And then the balance of the people that we need to house are going to be either in Gage House, West Wing, or in a couple of mobile trailers that we have out in front of Gage House.
And then, because people always ask, I'll say we're working with Rexon Park and the farmer's market manager for where we put the farmer's market during the construction. And one of the thoughts there, and we'll have a meeting in 2 weeks, and then I'm going to the Rexon Park Board in November, is possibly for the key construction period, just blocking from Little Falls and part of 313 and put it out in the street and that beautiful front grass area and sidewalks that we haven't been using. And so you can still have grid and traffic around and some parking, but have them not too far away, but out of the construction zone. But more work on that to come.
So speaking of parking, how much parking is being added in this addition renovation?
I know that we have 44 parking spaces. I haven't done the final count, but I know that we have 44 more than what we did have. And that's primarily recalls of the upper level of the parking garage. What's interesting is that there was an original parking study that was done about 4 years ago. And when we draw the same drawing, we get different counts. And that's what's been the difference. A lot of what's counted right now is not a legal parking space.
And one of our goals, too, is also to standardize all the parking that's striped out there, and so we have much more logical and right-sized parking instead of too small and too big. So hopefully that'll net a few as well. Welcome. Any more questions or comments? Wyatt, do you want to have any closing comment? So with that, I do want to thank you all for coming because it's really important that we are able to get the message out and hear feedback and input. And as you saw on the video, we have the website. We'll take comments and emails anytime. We have flyers out there on the City Hall as a fax sheet. If you want to take it and hand them out to your neighbors and friends, that's great. And anybody have any questions, feel free to let me or James Mack, who's the project manager, know. And have a great evening, and I really appreciate your time.
Thank you all.